I've had several requests for a tour of the art in my house, most of which I've done. So I'm going to start in the bedroom. There's no particular order of when I painted these things. These are all digital. I started all of my artwork on the computer. I had no idea how to work with paints. So these are done in Photoshop. This image here is an image of a dream I had. As many of you know, I suffer from migraines, and this is my depiction of the dream that I had. It's called Beastly Migraine. These other three portraits here are just practicing experimentation in portrait copies of images that I found in magazines and books that I enjoyed looking at. This one here, however, is a portrait of my mother, which I did from a photograph. She was an aviation pioneer, and I wanted to give it that flavor, that flair. A quick pan of the bedroom. Those of you who have been watching my videos will notice I now have new furniture. I mean, we're talking brand new. It still smells new. And one of the reasons I didn't have very many videos coming out last week was me getting the old furniture out and this new furniture in. It's quite an adventure. When the house needed repainting, I decided that painting is boring. It's one of the most boring things you can do. So I just decided to go wild with the color here. And this wall has always been a problem. What to do with this wall as far as artwork. It's hidden during the daytime when the door is open. And I just pictured one day, I pictured a giraffe there. So this is actually one of my first murals. It's my second mural. We'll show the couple of them downstairs, but this was a mural. Use a projector. I had to do it in 3 or 4 phases because you can't get the projector far enough away from the wall to get the entire image. So it took a little bit of planning, but it turned out pretty good. And of course the dilemma was, what about when the door is open? Well, so I painted the giraffe's butt on the door, so he has a duplicate butt. I also went through a phase of making all of my own frames. All of these images up here have frames around them that I built myself just from trim that you buy at Home Depot. It's another one of my very early paintings. It's called Triton Flyby. This was done in a 3D program called Bryce. It's one of my very earliest pieces, and I actually had it professionally framed. It's been around the world. It went on a tour with some organization that does science art, and so that was kind of fun. This is an image of Tiny Bear in my watercolor phase. I began with the digital media, and then I started branching out into watercolors, oils, and acrylics. I don't have any formal training, but I just dabble with it until it looks right. This is another one of my very earliest pieces. It's also digital image done in Bryce. And it's another one that I had professionally framed because this one went to a show down in Pasadena. It actually won a little prize down there. Again, part of my watercolor phase, one of the frames that I built myself. This is Gypsy Rose. I'm experimenting with making images of normal things like a cat or whatever, but in wild colors just to see what happened. This is another one of my earliest pieces, which was done in Bryce. It's a cat underwater in a chamber looking out at this mysterious beast outside the chamber. Another image done in Bryce. A little merchild with the same beast. This is an acrylic fantasy undersea image. I have never learned and never did learn to shade things properly. So I sort of just developed my own technique of creating different colors by lots of small dabs of paint. Maybe I should have just learned to do it right, huh? This is one of my first Persians. Her name was Monkey. This is not really a good depiction of her. She was much cuter than this. But it's an interesting painting, and it's the only one I have of her. This is a Photoshop painting of a mermaid. Another frame that I built. Oops. This is actually a peacock that I took a picture of at a local park here, and I made up the background and the fence for the composition of the painting. This is one of the few paintings I have that I did not do. I'm very charmed by this painting. It was done by one of my very good friends, and I consider him really an accomplished artist. He actually got me started working with real paints, you know, medium like acrylic and oil, that sort of thing. We have the thermostat cat on the wall. It's just kind of a freehand thing that I did just to add color to the wall. And I was going to make a nice sharp edge, purple edge around the corner of this, but it bleeds. This stuff just bleeds like crazy. You can, no matter how careful you are with the tape, it's going to bleed. So I just went with the bleed. I think this was my first oil painting, and it started out, I wanted to do like a real cat. It got out of control. It is a real cat, and I did it freehand, sort of from a photograph, but then this is kind of the painting where I started developing my little dabbing technique to create shading without having to actually know how to shade. On the either side of this hutch came with me when I moved up here in 1986, and I don't know how old it is. It was old when I got it, way before that. And I painted it one winter. It took several months actually, in pieces out in my garage to paint this. And on either side of it, I have my doodles. One is in warm colors. And it's just a doodle, wandering things, wandering around in there. And over here is another one in cool colors. Portrait of Tiny Bear, one of my very first portraits, kitty portraits. This is when she was fairly young. Tiny Bear. Another one of my largest portrait paintings of the kitties, and one of my more recent ones is Sequoia, done from one of my favorite photos of her. This is acrylic. I have not done portraits of all the cats, but I would like to at some point if I get back to real painting. I don't do much of it anymore. This is Sahara, one of my favorite photos of her. I did the painting from that. These two are actually started out as one recreation of a digital piece I did that didn't actually turn out very well. And I was trying to shade the sky, once again, trying to get shading in the sky, and couldn't do it. I ripped the canvas up in a rage. Then I started over again. These are painted on wood, and the right one is acrylic. It became an experiment to do two exact paintings in the two mediums. The right one is acrylic. The left one is in oils. The left one is the baby leopards. And the right one is the baby tigers. I actually did a number of images that were copies of some of my early digital work. This is another one. Lonely Orbit is the one that I showed you upstairs that was digital, that went to the show in Pasadena. This is an oil of that one. Slight differences in the composition. My doodle phase, I guess I'm still in my doodle phase, but I was doing large doodle boards. These are just scrap pieces of board out in the garage. And then I just start one corner and just start doodling. Sometimes they take a month, sometimes they take a year. Recently I've been doing doodles just on 8x10 paper. And this image is one that caused a lot of people to want to know more about the artwork. This is of an elephant at Marine World, which I live right across the street from, right across the freeway from. And she was named Taj, and at the time, 2004, she was the oldest elephant in North America. At least that's what they told me. We were invited, a group of artists were invited to Marine World to paint with the animals. The animals painted, in other words, Taj, they put a brush in Taj's trunk and she painted an image. And I took this picture of her. And then I made the painting. It's a piece of wood, which is 2 feet by 4 feet, my largest painting that I've ever done. Oh, well, I almost forgot this one. This painting is another recreation of a piece that I did in one of my 3D early computer art pieces. And I called it Mythic Bells. And this is in oils. And it was hanging over my desk when I was trying to come up with a cattery name. So the cattery was named after this painting, Mythic Bells.